Hello, everyone. Welcome to IIL webinars. It's wonderful to have you here, and I hope your week and year is off to a fantastic start. My name is Jordana, and I'm with the International Institute for Learning. If you're new to IIL, we are a global training organization dedicated to helping professionals like yourself gain the knowledge and skills to advance your career. Today's topic is all about the Certified Associate in Project Management, CAPM exam. And this is a entry level project management certification for those of you who are interested in gaining more responsibility or adding project management skills to your current role. The CAPM certification offers recognition to professionals who are interested in or just starting a career in project management, as well as project team members who wish to demonstrate their project management knowledge. And here to tell us about it today is our lead trainer, Jacqueline Dennis. Jacqueline is a trainer with IIL and she teaches many of our project management courses, and we're delighted to have her to discuss the CAPM exam. Before I hand it over, just a couple of things to mention. We are recording this session, and you will have access to the recording on your learner profile in about 24 to 48 hours after today. And we'd love your engagement during the webinar. Feel free to ask questions or share your thoughts with Jacqueline and the group at any time in the chat. I will be going over them at the end and keep track of them throughout and hand them over to Jacqueline. If you have any specific questions for Jacqueline, you can share them in the Q&A section. And again, we'll be taking all the questions at the end, so don't hesitate to ask before you forget. And with that, I will hand it over to Jacqueline.
Thank you, Jordana. I would just like to introduce myself before we get started so that you know what I bring to the webinar. So my name is Jacqueline Dennis. Everyone calls me Jackie. And as you can see by the bullet points that are here, I'm a senior consultant and trainer. I've been doing this full time, full part-time since 2008. I bring to the table, so to speak, 30 years plus project management professional experience. I started as a project manager and then advanced to program manager and then advanced from there to portfolio manager. I earned my PMP in 2002. At that time, the CAPM did not exist. To kind of give you a little more insight as to why I don't hold a CAPM, and then earned the PGMP in 2009. In 2020, I was awarded Virtual Trusted Trainer by Course Conductor, and the same year earned the PMI Authorized Training Partner credential. So that's just a little bit about me. So now what are we going to talk about in this webinar? Well, we're going to first address what is project management. We'll get real fundamental here. And then we will go from there to talk about who is PMI. Many of you probably heard the acronym, but maybe are not sure as to what the organization does or is and why you might want to pursue this credential. So we'll answer that question. Then we'll introduce you to the CAPM credential. From there, give you an overview of the exam content outlined, which is the driver for the exam. Many times you might hear it is the PMBOK guide that is the driver for the exam, but that's no longer true. It used to be, but not now. It's definitely the examination content outlined. So you'll be presented with an overview and also with a link so that you can download this particular reference without any additional cost to you from PMI's website. And then we'll talk about the CAPM exam prep. But beforehand, what I want to do is I would like you to take this poll, and I'm going to give you about a minute to answer the question that is here. what do you know about the Project Management Institute? Okay. And so we have a total of 55 that are here with us. I have allowed about a minute for everyone to respond. We might not need that much time. So it looks as though maybe about 7 more people, 6. If you've not responded yet, you have about 20 more seconds. 5 more people, 4 more people. Getting down to the right wire here. Looks like we had a few more that joined. And 5 more seconds before we close the poll. Okay, our time is up. So let's go ahead and look at the results. And so you should be able to see those results. And it looks like, wow, 46% are members of PMI. I'm impressed by that. 40% of you know about PMI, and 10% have little knowledge and 4% no knowledge. So we will make certain that there is some knowledge, at least, before we go ahead and move forward. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to share with you another poll. And this poll has to do with, again, give you about a minute to respond. What do you know about the Certified Associate in Project Management, CAPM credential? So simple responses: no knowledge, little knowledge, you know about it, you're pursuing it. It looks like I have about 69% of you that have responded. We'd certainly like to get to 100%, but with the limited time and maybe with individuals that are joining late, we might not get everyone. Have about 82% who have responded. We're kind of stabilizing there around 80+%. 5 more seconds. All right. We're going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. So you should be able to see the results here. And we have, what's the largest number? 36% that know about the CAPM, 30% have little knowledge. Then we have 19% of you that are pursuing it. And we have 15% of you that hold, that have no knowledge. All righty. So let's go ahead and try to bring some clarification to those of you that need to know a little bit more, and perhaps for those of you that are aware of the CAPM, we might be able to give you a little more insight here. Okay, so our first topic: what is project management and who is a PMI? All right, so project management is the use of specific knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to deliver something of value to people. Okay, and remember that the focus for projects now is not so much what comes out of the project that we call an outcome, but the value that it brings to the requesting organization, such as software that might bring value, re-engineered business processes that might bring value, or a building that's been constructed, or relief effort after a natural disaster. Also, it's expansion of sales into a new geographic market. So all of these could be the result of a project. So what about the Project Management Institute? PMI was founded in 1969. It is recognized as the leading professional organization for project management in the world. It is also an authority for a growing global community of millions of those that practice in the profession, and also for those who employ the skill sets that we bring to organizations. PMI is a not-for-profit project management organization for the profession. It offers certifications and recognizes specific knowledge, or I should say, offers certifications that recognize specific knowledge, competency that includes not limited to Certified Associate in Project Management, the PMP, Project Management Professional, as well as PMI Agile Certified Practitioner, that is called the PMI ACP credential. There are other credentials, but these are the ones that tend to be the most popular. All right, so PMI credential holders are expected to perform in a professionally ethical manner. Therefore, we have something called the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. It will be part of your exam reference, or it will be included in your exam references. Some of the questions will come from this to see if you're thinking ethically. But what the Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct expects is that we will be responsible for what we do. This means that we have a duty to take ownerships for the decisions that we make or fail to make. We will be respectful. This means that we will show a high regard for ourselves, others, and resources entrusted to us. It also means that we will be fair. Fair means that we will make decisions and act impartially and objectively. And then honesty means that we will understand what is the truth and act in a manner that reflects the fact that we will act in a truthful manner. All right, so what about this CAPM credential? Let's turn our attention to what it is. So the CAPM is a professional credential that is geared towards the individual who is entering the profession. And they need to be able to demonstrate on the exam a readiness for greater responsibility. The CAPM will indicate that this individual has knowledge of common practices that are used at the associate level, or sometimes the associate is called an administrator or a coordinator of project management. PMI projects that the global economy will need 25 million new project management employees to meet project demands by 2030. So this equates to 12 million being due to the field's projected expansion, and 13 million are due to worker retirement. So this translates to 2.3 million project management job openings per year from this time forward through 2030, which indicates a strong, steady growth for the field. Even early career project management professionals are expected to earn relatively high salaries according to PMI because of this particular demand. So what about the examination eligibility? Well, first of all, you need only a secondary diploma or a global equivalent and 23 contact hours of formal education, which the CAPM prep course that we'll talk about later on will provide for you. In fact, there will be one more hour, be 24 hours as opposed to 23. You must earn at least 15 professional development units within your 3-year credential period to maintain the credential. So once you are certified, then you've got to continue learning, so to speak, continue contributing to the profession in order to maintain that credential. So that's only about 5 professional development units per year that you are credentialed. Now, why even earn the credential? Well, it will differentiate you as one who is able to assume responsibility, greater responsibility. It also will indicate that you're someone that's reliable from a professional perspective. And it also counts as the required 35 contact hours for making application to earn your PMP. So the PMP eligibility requirements require 35 contact hours of specific training to make application. Well, if you hold a CAPM, then the additional training is waived, we could say. And let me also add that this credential is registered against ISO 9001, which is a standard for quality management systems that provides third-party affirmation of quality in whatever the standard is conveying. And in this particular case, it's going to be in project management. I have a question here that I'm going to answer right now. And the question is, can a recent MBA with a project management concentration take the PMP after obtaining his MBA degree, or do they have to take a CAPM first? You can go right to the PMP. The only caution that I would have is that you prepare yourself by taking the prep course, gaining those 35 hours, and also along with the course will come exam-like questions that you can use for practice. So no, you need not go to the CAPM directly before the PMP. All right, so next topic that we have, CAPM examination content outline overview. So again, this is the driver for exam questions, and I will give you an example of that as we go through this, okay? All right. So the examination content outline is again the driver for the exam. And it's not only for CAPM, each one of the credential exams have one that's aligned to that credential. So PMP has an ECO, the PGMP has an ECO. So you want to make certain that you have the right ECO when you're preparing for the exam. The ECO, examination content outline, is the outcome of a job task analysis. And so what happens is that there are practitioners that are randomly selected and asked about the practices that they perform at their level. And then this feedback is converted to the examination content outline inputs. And you will see in just a moment that we have as inputs, we have domains. Domains are decomposed into tasks, and tasks are decomposed into what we call enablers. All right. Give me just a moment here. Having some pilot error going on. All right, so we're going to look at, first of all, the distribution of the questions that are in the ECO by exam domain, So the first domain that we have is the project management fundamentals and core concept domain. This makes up 36% of the examination questions. Next, we have predictive based or predictive plan-based methodologies. When you see the term predictive, that indicates a sequential way of managing the project. Oftentimes, individuals will use the term waterfall. Waterfall is not a methodology, it's a life cycle model, but it's understood that it implies predictive as a methodology. Okay, so that's what it's talking about there. Then the next domain, domain 3, is agile frameworks and methodologies. That makes up 20% of the exam questions. Agile is an adaptive methodology. So you actually have two that you can, three methodologies that you can apply to managing a project: predictive, adaptive, which agile is a variation of adaptive, and then we have hybrid, where we combine the first two elements of the first two methodologies, which is becoming really popular. Okay, so this is making up 20%. And then lastly, we have business analysis, and that makes up 27%. So it's the next largest domain to fundamentals. For some, this is pretty surprising, but when you get into it, I think you will understand why it's so important. All right, so let's look at the internals, so to speak, for our ECO. So once again, we have examination domains. Domain means a high-level knowledge area that is essential to the practice of project management. An example is coming from domain 1, that is from the first domain, project management fundamentals and core concepts. And it is decomposed into several tasks, and you will see these momentarily. I'm not going to go through every task. That would just take too much time, but you get an idea of the tasks that are associated with this domain. So a task is the underlying responsibilities of the team member within each domain. And as a project management practitioner, you can assume that you're a team member. It's not trying to say that you're at a lower level of performance. Everybody is part of the team. That's the mindset that we want to hold. So this first task example that we have is as a project management fundamental perspective or core concept perspective. On the exam, you should be able to demonstrate that you have an understanding of the various life cycle, we could say models and processes associated with project management. So our life cycle models, like waterfall, is aligned with a predictive development approach. Do you understand that? And what about processes that you could apply in order to manage the project in that way? And then lastly, we have an enabler. Enabler is an illustrative example of the work associated with the task. So in this example, we have task one, to demonstrate an understanding of various project life cycles and processes. An example is to be able to distinguish between what is a project, what is a program, what is a portfolio, okay, in the various processes that you might need to perform or project life cycle models. All right. So in the ECO, and again, later on, you'll be given a link where you'll be able to download this without any additional cost to you. We have the domain one, which we showed previously, and we have the percentage here of questions that are, by the way, randomly selected from a bank of questions. So everyone that takes the exam is not going to experience the same questions, okay? Based on this random selection. So task one, we read it previously, and then we have the enabler one. I'm sorry, we have our enablers for task one. And so we saw the first one. The second one is we should be able to distinguish between predictive and adaptive development approaches and apply project management code of ethics. We saw reference to that previously, and explain how a project can be a vehicle for change, okay? And we're talking about not change control, but change management, which are two different things from a project management perspective. Okay, I'm going to go relatively quickly now through the remaining slides regarding the ECO. So we have task two, demonstrate an understanding of project management planning that you should be able to do or exhibit on the exam. You should be able to demonstrate an understanding of project roles and responsibilities, determine how to follow and execute planned strategies or frameworks, such as strategies for communication or for risks. You should be able to demonstrate an understanding of common problem-solving tools and techniques. Explain, I'm sorry, let me go back. Okay, so this is the end of our domain one. For domain two, once again, is predictive plan-based methodologies. That makes up 17% of the exam, and we only have 3 tasks associated with it. So the first one, you should be able to explain when it's appropriate to use a predictive plan-based approach. When you develop a plan, you need to demonstrate your understanding of the project management plan schedule. You should be able to also determine how to document project controls for predictive plan-based projects. Next, we have domain 3. And for domain 3, we have a total of, I think it's 5 tasks. This is where you need to understand agile frameworks and methodologies. This is making up, again, 20% of the exam questions. Task 1, you should be able to explain when it's appropriate to use an adaptive approach. And remember, agile is under the category of adaptive. There's also two other subcategories of adaptive that are called iterative and incremental. And you'll also learn about those as well, okay? And should be able to differentiate between the three. You should be able to determine how to plan project iterations, and iterations go along with adaptive in the way that we go about managing the project. Continuation of domain 3, you should be able to determine how to document project controls for adaptive, explain the components of an adaptive plan, and determine how to prepare and execute task management steps when we are going about managing our projects in an adaptive manner. Domain 4 is business analysis frameworks. Remember, this is the second largest test domain. And so you can expect several tasks associated with this one, like the first one that we had. First task, on exam, you should be able to demonstrate an understanding of business analysis, roles and responsibilities, determine how to conduct stakeholder communication, determine how to gather requirements. You should also be able to demonstrate an understanding of product roadmaps, demonstrate how project methodologies influence business analysis processes, and validate requirements through product delivery. Okay, so it is quite a bit. And let me just give you some helpful hints now before we move on to the next topic, which is about exam preparation. What I generally suggest for those that are preparing for a PMI credential is to take the ECO, and you can copy and paste it into Word or Excel. And I would add another column over here on the right. And what I would do is I would go through each one of these enablers, not at the task level, but enabler level, and put a check mark or an X, depending on check mark. Yes, I can do this. X, no, I can't do this. So what you would do here, for example, is ask yourself, can I explain the application of a product roadmap? If the answer to that is yes, then you will put a check mark there, okay, to say, yes, I can do this, okay? If the answer is no, let's say to determine which components go to which releases, then you will say, no, I can't do that, okay? If you would take time to go through each one of these enablers, that will help you to target better your concentration when you're preparing for the exam. Of course, exam-like questions will also help to confirm or not that you understand it, but that will be a good way to start. All right.
Just want to mention that May just put the ECO in the chat for everyone to view. Just wanted to put that out there before you moved on.
All right. Thank you so much, Jordana. I appreciate that. All right, so let's look at CAPM examination preparation. So the exam itself is computer-based, and there is going to be a pass or fail result. You will receive a printed copy, online copy. If you take the computer-centered based exam, that will give you a report whether it's pass or fail. If you choose to do computer online proctor exam, then you would have a pass or fail result, and your report will be online. The examination fees are determined by your PMI membership. So the cost of the exam will be lessened if you are a PMI member, and the costs are determined also by your region or geographical location in the world. The costs are included in the CAPM handbook, which you can also download from PMI without any additional cost to you. So it's a 3-hour exam, whether it's center-based or proctor-based. There are 150 multiple choice questions. Only 135 of those are scored. So what happens to the other 15? There are 15 questions that are used for statistical purposes. And this means that there are questions that are being introduced into the question bank that are new, or they might be revised. And PMI is testing out how well the questions perform in an exam environment. For example, you will not know of the 150 questions which ones are not going to be scored. So you want to do well on all of them. As opposed to think, well, I just have to focus on 135. No, you have to focus on 150. And again, pass or fail result. So the 15 questions included in exam are randomly placed, as I just mentioned, throughout the examination for statistical purposes, and they will not be included to determine your pass or fail result. So there is a CAPM course that IIL has developed. It can be instructor-led, either in a classroom or live virtually, or you could take the class on demand. It will give you practical applications of concepts that are PMI oriented by way of the content of the course materials, exercises in the classes, discussions, quiz questions that are presented as well. The quiz questions are similar to what you might see on the CAPM exam, but in the classroom, they will be, let's say, simplified or more elementary. There is also another tool that is available to you, the CAPM IQ. And if you take the class at that, CAPM IQ is another bank of questions that will be made available to you, and they're more like what you will experience on the exam. In other words, the level of difficulty will be raised when you go from the classroom level exam questions or quiz questions to the CAPM IQ questions. All right, so we want to pause here for just a moment, and I'd like to know if you have any questions thus far about project management, PMI, CAPM, or the examination content outline.
There was one question in the chat, and someone asked what has a higher value, PMP or CAPM?
As far as value, I would not respond in that way with my answer because we're looking at different levels of maturity or responsibility. So the CAPM is going to support the efforts of a PMP. PMP is going to have more responsibility. then will the CAPM. Okay, they both provide value, but at a different level of maturity. Did that answer your question?
Yes, they just responded
Okay.
yes. There's another one. Where can you get the EOC outline for PMP?
That too can be downloaded from PMI's website. So let me just pause and say this for those of you that might not be members of PMI, you can actually create an account on PMI's website at pmi.org. And there's no cost to creating an account, navigating through their website, downloading ECOs, downloading handbooks. All of that is without any additional cost. But if you want access to guides or standards that we will talk about in just a moment that you'll need for exam references, that's where there will be additional costs to you. You will not be able to download a digital copy of these guides or standards without paying for them.
Someone else asked, what is the roadmap to get to CAPM and then to PMP certifications for someone with an engineering background?
And change. Let me just share with you that in my introduction, you might have missed it, or maybe you weren't here, but I have been in several different industries. I started my profession in mechanical engineering. Then I transitioned into software development. Then I transitioned into project management. So project management is project management no matter where you are with respect to industry. It does not change. The guides and the standards are, we could say, vanilla in their application so that you can apply them to any industry that you're in. You will learn, if you don't already know, that as a professional, depending on your industry, you've got certain characteristics associated with your project. So you will tailor what PMI gives you as far as vanilla guidance to the type of project that you're managing. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm assuming, yeah.
Um, there's one more question. Can they earn a PDU from this webinar?
Okay, I'm going to start the answer with explanation of what is a PDU. So I'll get to your answer in just a moment. So a professional development unit is what we use, those that have been credentialed by PMI to maintain our credential. You will be given hours of a training that you can apply to maintain your credential. It might say PDU, but if you don't hold a credential, it's actually a CU. It's a continuing education type um, what do I want to say? Learning that you can apply. Hopefully that helped to explain what is a PDU. So a PDU only applies when you hold a PMI credential. Did I muddy that or was it clear?
No, that was clear.
Learning index, says someone. Okay,
That was
that's a good
definitely
word.
clear. But to answer the question, yes, you can earn a PDU with this webinar, and that information will be available on your learner dashboard after the webinar.
All righty. Thank you, Jordana. Okay, Now let's go ahead and wrap things up. So, in your preparation, you've got several references that you need to have on hand. Of course, the ECO that we spent some time on. You will also need a copy of the PMBOK Guide, 7th edition. And again, a digital copy. If you are a PMI member, you'll be able to download it without additional cost to you. If you are not a PMI member, then you will have to pay to download a digital copy. You can also get a hard copy, and whether you're a member or not, you need to pay for a hard copy. There's also another reference called PMI's Process Group or Practice Guide that documents 49 processes that you will need to be familiar with. Your PMI Business Analysis for Practitioners Practice Guide and PMI's Agile Practice Guide. So what about the PMBOK Guide? The PMBOK Guide 7th edition is separated into two different resources. The first is the standard for project management that carries the ANSI designation. And the second is the Guide to Project Management Body of Knowledge. And we typically call the reference with its two resources, the PMBOK Guide, okay? Just to simplify things. So the PMBOK Guide 7th edition includes the introduction in the first section that covers its purpose, terms, concepts, audience, the value delivery system. Section 2 is the standard for project management that addresses collection of strategic business activities. And then section 3 is project management principles that focuses on 12 principles that are intended to guide behaviors of project stakeholders. The second resource, which is actually the PMBOK Guide, the introduction addresses the guide structure and relationships to the standard. Section 2 is where it includes project management performance domains, not to be confused with the ECO test domains. So these are areas of performance that we will meld together, so to speak, as we are managing our projects. Tailoring is section 3, and it entails the way that we should mindfully select and adjust how we're going to manage the project, again, depending on the project characteristics that are determined by the industry that we're in. And then models, methods, and artifacts provides a high-level description of commonly used methods, models, and project management. Our PMI Process Group Practice Guide will influence the way that we work. So there are tailorable processes here that are associated with initiating, how to initiate or start a project, how to plan a project, how to execute a project, monitor, control, and close a project. It will ensure we're equipped with the information that we need to succeed, and it provides us with popular process groups model. And that's all I'll say about that, unless I have a question. And then we have the business analysis for practitioners, a practice guide that will help you gain a better understanding of good requirements practices. So it includes several sections, a section on what the guide covers, a section on needs assessment, section on business analysis planning, on requirement solicitation and analysis, on traceability and monitoring, and also on solution evaluation. It is definitely a value add because of having requirements related activities that you need to be familiar with. No, you don't need to perform these, but you need to give direction to others or understand what others are doing that are in the business analysis role. It also provides insights that will enable you to better meet and understand customer expectations as well as your delivered solution. We also have PMI's Agile Practice Guide. It includes introduction as to what the guide is about, a section on life cycle selection, and a section on implementing and creating an agile environment, as well as implementing a delivery environment and any organizational considerations for project agility. There's an understanding of various agile approaches that are in the guide, tools and situational guidelines to gain insight to applying the best approach. There's an excellent tool in the back of the guide, in the appendix that you can use that will help you to determine whether agile is the right approach or whether you should use predictive or hybrid. It's a helpful guide to enable you to adapt a traditional environment or one that's predictive to one that's more adaptive or agile. All right, so we've got another poll coming up here. And again, I will give you about a minute to respond. Now, do you think you know a little bit more about PMI since we started? Hopefully, you've got a little more insight. And so I've got 60% of you that have responded. Again, we'd like to have 100% if possible. Okay. Got about 20 more seconds remaining. I've got 69%. Oh, we've got a few more coming in here. Time is going to run out in about 10 seconds. All right, our time is up. We're going to end the poll and share the results. And so 98% of you are saying, yes, I know more about PMI now. Okay. A few say no, but that's okay. Especially for those that came in as members of PMI, I expect some of you to say no. All right, let's go on to the next poll. And the next poll is, now do you have greater insights into the CAPM credential? So we have 73% that have responded. Have a greater percentage here that are saying no. I'm a little disappointed about that. So if there's anything that I can perhaps address in the time that we have remaining to give you a little more insight for those of you that are saying no, please don't hesitate to ask. All right, we've got about 10 more seconds. All right, our time is up, so we're going to go ahead and close the poll and share the results. And so we have 97% that are saying, yes, you have greater insights, and 3% that are saying no. All right. So let's go ahead and move forward from here. So the topics that we covered in this webinar included addressing what is project management in PMI, introducing you to the CAPM credential, also the examination content outline, and a little bit about preparation. Now, this is the roadmap that, as someone asked about earlier, that provides detailed information about the examination certification process. So you will be given a PDF of this particular,
It is in the chat right now.
yeah, okay, all righty. Let me back up a little bit. Were the results shared on the poll? I don't see.
Yes, I
Okay.
can share them again.
Okay.
This one.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Perhaps I missed that. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jordana. Okay. So you will be given, or you have been given at this handout. So if you want to know the roadmap, here it is. And I just want to make a quick comment, and that is pay attention to the time frames for each step. Sometimes individuals will have unrealistic expectations about how quickly they can get through it. All right, so it will also be available on your dashboard after the webinar. Okay, I'll hand it over to you now, Jordana. Or
So before you hand it over, there's two more questions that I want to throw at you
okay,
from the chat. One
okay.
is, what about the CAPM book? I've been using the PMI book to study.
CAPM book. I'm not sure what book that is. So the references that we went over at the in the webinar are the references that we suggest. If you could give me the title of the CAPM book and author, I could probably give you a better answer.
The other question was, someone said, I already have the PMI SP scheduling professional that I got a long time ago. Is there a need for me to get the PMP or CAPM, noting that my job is mainly related to planning, scheduling, and project controls management?
My answer to that is I would recommend that you get a PMP, perhaps a CAPM as well, if you want to advance in the profession and give yourself, let's say, more surety that you will be able to stay in a profession. You never know where your career might take you, so you want to be prepared. And just having that SP will not prepare you for positions elsewhere. That's what I would say. It might be a little much for me to say at this point, but I think you will be have a greater stability in the profession if you get another credential. CAPM, PMP, PMP definitely.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jackie. I will
You're welcome.
go over this slide a little bit more. We have some upcoming courses, as this slide says. February 4th is the start date for one, and then April 22nd. The New York City hybrid class, if you're in the New York City area, you could come into our office in Manhattan and be live with the instructor, or you can join virtually. We have a great system where you could do both with the same session. And as Jackie mentioned earlier, we also have a self paced on demand option that is also available. And so there's the information to contact below, or you could always give us a call and get connected to a relationship manager, such as myself. But thank you all so much for attending. I hope it was informational and beneficial, and we hope to see you all next time.